One thing I should just mention is that the sound is a little bit quiet at the start, so
Hi, I'm Nikki
don't worry.
Newcomb, founder of Bliss of London. Bliss was started in 2011 and we manufacture our saddles and bridle work at our factory in Walsall. Throughout this time, we've chosen to use the lariat trees for their precision and ingenuity. Today, I would like to show you some of the different trees that we've designed and the profiles of horses that we use them for. All of our saddle models are available on any of the tree options that we offer. This means that if a client falls in love with a particular type or a particular look of saddle, then it doesn't matter if we're fitting this to an off-the-track thoroughbred or one of the widest cobs, because we'll then have a tree profile and model to suit that particular horse, and we can build that saddle around a particular tree. The trees, or the majority of the trees that we use day to day in the saddle manufacturing, and I'm just going to run through the different types of profiles of horses that they tend to work on. So this one is our warm blood tree. So it does have a typical A-frame head, but the main difference with the warm blood is it has quite a flat rail underneath. So you do find that with most of the warm bloods, they do have that much broader back. Certainly the dressage horses that are probably more established and better muscled at the back need that flatter rail underneath. So that's the type of profile that the warm blood, it is what it says on the tin, generally it fits the warm blood profiles. Then the next tree we have here is the hoop tree. So the hoop is a more open, sort of inverted U-shaped head. This one tends to work on your cobs, natives, certainly Connemara's, draft type horses, and any of the older style warm bloods, so like your Hanoverians, the bigger, the much heavier type warm bloods. Most of the warm bloods now are more sports horse and they're becoming much lighter built, but the older style warm bloods still tend to go in the hoop profile. It has a sort of a in-between pitch on the rails from the warm blood to the classic that I'll show you next. So it has just a little bit of sway in its body. This is the classic. So again, it has an A-frame head and has a little bit sweep in the body. Now this tends to work on anything that's a much lighter built horse. It's not that usual for us to use classics in sort of a wide plus fitting. So certainly you're off the track thoroughbreds. Some of your younger warm bloods may need it, but then they may need to change back into a warm blood tree at a later date. So yeah, anything that's lighter weight and doesn't have the muscle and the strength across the back, because the classic has a little bit more pitch under the rail here and tends to suit that type of profile there. Then the next one we have, this is the close contact tree. Now the close contact generally is used just in jump saddles when riders want that close contact feeling. So the tree itself is a much neater looking tree. It's a little bit slimmer in the seat. So this tree has, when it's built, you don't have as much panel underneath it. So the less panel is what's dictating the close contact feel that the rider gets between the saddle and the horse. It really needs to go on a horse that's got a good top line. It certainly isn't the type of tree that you want to use if you're going to be putting it on a off the track thoroughbred or something that's in the lighter build. Of course, as you know, we do see them used quite a lot on jump saddles with horses that don't necessarily have the best top lines, but then they're probably sticking half a dozen different pads underneath it anyway, in which case it doesn't really matter. But if you're doing it from a true fitting perspective, this tree needs to go on a horse that has a good top line. And then the next tree we have here, this is the cute little pony tree. Similar build to the close contact, because on the pony saddles we don't tend to want to have too much panel. If you're using sort of the depth and the width of panel that we use on the horse saddles, it's just too high, it's just too much up and above the pony. So it's a very similar concept to the close contact, where you have quite a minimal panel. We do these roughly from about a 14 inch through to a 16 inch. and they can come with all sorts of different cantles so that we can build different types of models of saddles on them. So every profile of tree that we offer, you can have a different cantle on it. So, you know, if your horse is a warm blood build and you're building a jumping saddle or a dressage saddle or a GP saddle, all of the tree profiles have different cantle options. So this is the dressage cantle, so it's the tallest of all of the cantles, and it's the most upright of all the cantles. Then we move on to the GP cantle. So you're starting to come down in height, so not quite as tall, but it also angles back a little bit further, so that's starting to give a slightly flatter, more open seat. Then we move on to the jump tree. So again, a slightly shorter cantle even so, and this again is angled further back, so you now really are into a flat seated saddle. And at this stage, it's not unknown for us to mix cantles with different trees. So a lot of the classical dressage riders actually don't like the deep seats in the dressage trees. So they might actually order a dressage saddle with a GP cantle. Obviously we'd have different bars on it, because the bars for your dressage are a much longer throated bar, so that the stirrup position is further back. Whereas on your GP, your jump and your other trees, they're a shorter bar. Then we move on to the eventer tree. So the eventer is the flattest seat that we do, and as you can see, the angle, the pitch of that cantle is much further laid back than the jump saddle. So this really does give a flat seat option for the rider. The gents prefer this seat for obvious reasons, but it's definitely an eventer saddle that you can sit back in the seat and not feel the cantle behind you. And then, as I said before, the little pony saddle, we've got all the three different options of cantles. The dressage cantle isn't quite as tall, so that everything looks in proportion. We have been producing the Loxley range of saddles with the option of the adjustable tree for almost 5 years now, with great success. Lariat were instrumental with us in the development of this tree, and as you can see, it's a full-bodied injection moulded polymer tree with interchangeable bars. These bars can be changed either by yourself as saddle fitters or by the rider. This is the same tree that is actually used in all of the Cavaletti saddles, which is our sister company as well. These are the gullet bars, the interchangeable bars for the adjustable tree. So we have 6 different width options: extra wide, wide, medium, and medium narrow. And the beauty of the way these bars have been designed is in the head plates, it's the width in the actual head that is what you will see when it's built into the tree. That will help to determine the gullet width. So on the narrower fits, you've got much more of an A-frame shape head, but then that morphs through into a much more of a inverted U, broader head. So the distance, you can see the distance and the difference between those two different bars. They don't simply pivot out from the center on a wing angle system, they actually broaden in the head at the same time. So you tend to find that the tree almost morphs from a classic profile through to a hoop type profile. So these two trees, the one has got the narrowest bar in, the medium narrow, and the one on the right has got the extra wide. So you can see the difference that makes to the tree profile when it's sitting on the horse. You literally do go from that A-frame to your hoop type profile, and then it also broadens out. It's probably difficult to see until we put them on horses, but you can see the difference it makes even in the pitch of the body. It broadens the body out as well. So it does alter the pitch, not right the way through to the back, but it does start to make a difference in the middle of the body. This is Billy. She is a 6-year-old Welsh Carb Cross mare, and she's in a Cavaletti saddle. Okay, so the orange is our extra wide bar, and that's the width of the bar that's in the saddle that Billy's ridden in now. So you can see the angle on this against her. In comparison to this one is the extra wide bar. So you can see There's a little bit too much play in that one. That one will be too wide for her. And then in comparison to the wide bar, which is the red one, you can actually see that that one doesn't sit down at all. It's starting to dig into her at the bottom of the bar, and she's obviously getting a little bit uncomfortable with that. So this is the actual adjustable tree that's in the saddle that she's ridden in at the moment. So you can see how the profile sits nice and broadly across the back. This particular tree has got the extra wide bar in. So you can actually see when it's sat, it is just balancing a little bit further forward, which is why she's in a narrower plate. As well as being suited to the adjustable tree, she's chosen the adjustable tree because she can fluctuate in her weight a little bit. She would also be a good candidate for the hoop tree. You can see this type of profile, and if you come over the top here, you can see the distance in between the rails that gives that nice broad gullet through the middle, because she is obviously so wide through there. So that one is our hoop tree. It's got a little bit of sway in the body, so it sort of suits this type of back profile, not a particularly flat back profile. I mean, she probably will come up a little bit just to lift up in the middle there. It's got a nice pitch on the angle of the rails, a nice sort of contact with the horse, and a nice sort of open head here. That's Loxley. She's a 10-year-old mare. She's about 7/8 thoroughbred. I do a bit of eventing with her, although she has had an injury. So being a mainly thoroughbred profile, she's ridden in the classic tree. So this is the classic tree. And as you can see, we've got a nice even sweep. We've got that nice symmetry of the rail of the tree against her back profile. So the classic has got the A-frame head. It's got a little bit of sweep in the body, and then it's got the pitch of the rails at the back. So she isn't particularly broad across her back, so that nice pitch of the rail there works nicely against her. So in comparison, this is the warm blood tree. You can hopefully see that the flatter rail profile on this isn't as suitable for her. It's almost causing a little bit of a bridging area here. And then certainly at the back, the pitch of the rail here isn't again forming that nice symmetry against the pitch of her back profile. So you've got quite a gap here. So you'd almost end up with a little bit too much pressure on the inside and not so much contact on the outside. So the classic tree, which has much more of a pitch, you can see forms an even, whereas the warm blood is much flatter. So this one is the hoop tree. Now, whilst the general flow of the rails isn't quite as bad as the warm blood, and the actual pitch is a little bit better, because the pitch on the hoop is in between the classic and the warm blood. The difference with the hoop tree is because we have that big open head, it's almost too much here. She doesn't need that width in the spine. So you might actually find that if she had a saddle built on this tree, you'd almost get a bit of rocking and rolling in the actual front of the head, although the rest of the body does look quite nice. As a final comparison on Loxley, this is the close contact tree. So again, it doesn't look particularly bad with most of the contact through here, but she isn't a really strong top-lined horse. So me personally, I'd much rather have her in the classic so that we can have more panel for some of her hollow. So this is actually Loxley's own dressage saddle that she's ridden in. So this particular one is built on the classic tree, which is the most suited for her. So we've got a nice even pressure under the point of the tree, and then we've got a nice flow right the way underneath the rails of the tree, so there's a nice evenness all the way through the panel. In comparison to, this is one of my other horse's saddles, but this is actually on the warm blood tree, so although I've still got a nice evenness through underneath the point, this is probably a bit harder to see without actually the feel of it. But when I run my hand underneath here, I've almost got a little bit of a bridging area. Now that's because the warm blood tree is flatter and it's not following the sweep of her back quite so well. So this is Casper, this is another one of my horses. He is a 6-year-old warm blood. but he's a very immature warm blood. He always has been. He's got quite a lot of thoroughbred in the warm blood lines, so he isn't sort of the width that you would see on a lot of typical warm bloods. However, as far as the tree that he's ridden in, I have chosen the warm blood. This is the warm blood tree on him. Now, it really works well for him on the profile of the flatness through the middle of the tree. The only compensation is the pitch of the rail here isn't quite as I would like. Now, that can be accommodated when we build the saddles with different depths of back gussets to help that flow. Now, he is young, so I am hoping that he is going to develop and broaden across his back here. But having ridden him in the classic saddle and the warm blood, the classic definitely has a rock when you ride in it, and the warm blood tree generally sits much more still on his back. So if I show you the classic tree now. So this is the classic tree, and although the pitch looks much better through here, actually what I find happens in the actual saddle is it's rolling quite a lot when I ride in it, and it is getting quite a rock. So with the two saddles that we've got, I'll show you the difference again with the two saddles that are made up with the different trees. So although warm blood from the length, from the flatness of his profile works for him, sometimes there's compensations, and it's easy to see on the classic tree. If he's ridden in the classic tree, you can actually see it lifting at the back of the saddle, and that's so much easier to see than determining it the other way around. If he was the classic profile and you got the warm blood on, when you're riding, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see that there is a bridging, but on a classic saddle, on a warm blood horse, you can see if there is too much curvature in the tree, because it does tend to lift up at the back. And then just as another tree comparison on him, just to show when it doesn't work, this is the hoop tree. So it just totally doesn't sit anywhere on him whatsoever. It's way too open at the head for him. He's probably only about a narrow medium fit. But this is where it's really good. A lot of the saddle fitters that we work with actually use the bare trees when they are out saddle fitting. So they're working from the bare tree upwards, putting the trees on the horses to get an idea of what profile they are built, what will work for them, and working upwards from the bare tree. So even using the gullet bars can be quite useful when you're outfitting, to give you an idea whether it's a wooden tree or an adjustable tree. You can put the gullet bars on to get that width comparison. So this one is the narrow medium, which sits quite nicely on him. Whereas if I put the medium bar on him, you can straight away see that there is a little bit of wobble in the bar. It is just that little bit too wide for him. So as well as taking the templates, if you just want an initial gauge as to what type of width you think the horse is, these bars are actually quite useful to work from that. So this is his saddle. So this has got the warm blood tree in it. So it's got a nice flow through underneath. And again, you won't be able to appreciate without the actual feel, but it's got a nice flow through the panel. Whereas on Loxley, we had that bridging in the middle. This is very much an even flow through the back, with the back gusset to accommodate that rail angle that wasn't quite right for him. We've been able to accommodate that with the back gusset on this saddle. So it's the same model of saddle, but this is Loxley's saddle. It's in the classic tree. And when I started riding him, I was using this saddle, and I did find that I did get this rocking feeling in it. I could feel the back lifting up, and that's where the curvature of the tree is just a little bit too much. There's almost more pressure in the middle underneath this panel, and then it frees up as it comes at the back, and I think that's what was causing it to give that sort of lift feel at the back. Okay, so this is Hugo. He's a 5-year-old off the track thoroughbred. I've known him about 12 months now, and he has actually put on quite a bit of condition from when his owner first had him. So being a thoroughbred, he's very much a typical classic tree profile. Good boy. So this is our classic tree. So you can see that if he stands up properly. Come on, good lad. So the pitch of the rail works quite well for him. We've got that sweep in the tree and we've got that nice pitch at the back there. He is quite touchy, so we might need to accommodate with what we do with him. This is a medium wide fitting, so it is too wide for him, but generally as an overall profile, this is the typical type of horse that the classic trees are working well on. In comparison to the warm blood tree, which again, you can see that flatness of the rail not working so well for him, and definitely the pitch at the back here being much flatter and a much greater distance. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on the inside of the tree and not so much even pressure on the outside of the rail. So the obvious answer for Hugo was certainly to look at using the adjustable tree, because as he is aging and growing and developing, we're hoping he's going to build up some top line. I'm sure he's never going to be a wide fitting horse, but having that adjustable bar inside the tree is allowing us to just monitor his condition and change the bar if need be. So at the moment he is still in the narrowest bar, the medium narrow. So these adjustable trees are very useful, obviously for horses that are going to be changing shape, but also for fitters, because you can be using that adjustable tree one day on a horse like Hugo in the narrower fitting bars, and then the next day in a horse like Billy that we saw that's in sort of an extra wide bar. So that same saddle becomes quite flexible to use on different profiles of horses. The saddle that Hugo's had made, it's one of our Loxy Jump saddles, and this is built on the adjustable tree. So it's got a nice contact, a nice flow through there, the point of the tree, and it's got a nice flow through the panel at the back. So this is Jack. He's a little 11-hand Welsh pony. He isn't actually ridden, but for purpose of showing you some trees on ponies, he's being our model today. So this is the hoop tree. And whilst you can see it gives that nice broad width through the centre, which would give us a nice wide gullet that we often want for the broader ponies. He's not as wide as a lot of ponies that we see, and this is a 17.5-inch tree, which admittedly is way too long for him. But you can just see the general width of the seat. It's just quite a big tree for little ponies. The hoop trees can work well when you get to sort of like your 14 hands and some of your bigger ponies, but on these little ponies, that's why we have a different tree that we tend to use on. So this is our 15-inch pony tree, and you can see it's a lot neater profile, even in the width across the seat, but we've still got this nice broad distance between the rails, so it still allows us to achieve quite a wide gullet on all of the saddles that we do. So these pony trees go down from, or start from a 14-inch up to 16-inch, and we can have them with a dressage, a jumping, or a GP cantle on them. So we can make all the different types of saddles that we do in our range on this particular tree to suit ponies.